Growing up in the UK, an enormous sense of guilt was instilled into us about the British Empire and about the colonial period. We only learned about violations and terrible mistakes and atrocities that Britain is supposed to have committed during the period of the empire, and there's no doubt that it did commit mistakes and atrocities. There was also a large minority voice when I was a kid that said, well, Britain certainly did screw up all kinds of things, but it also brought incredible infrastructure, technology and trade to countries that fell under its colonial blanket. And I'm sure that's true as well. Having visited many countries across the world that were previously a part of the British Empire, I'm convinced that that is absolutely true. There's two sides to every coin, and they're not necessarily equally weighted. The story of colonialization, I'm not justifying anything at all, the story of colonialization is the story of the world, affecting absolutely every country on the face of the earth and defining everything to do with the experience of human development and human history. Meanwhile, imagine going out into the world as a young adult with this enormous burden of guilt about the British Empire, and then many years later arriving in a place like Myanmar. Myanmar, which used to be called Burma under the British Empire, is, or the city of Yangon, the commercial hub. Yangon is a British imperial city that is defined by British imperial architecture. It's defined by a sense of fair play in commercial terms within the commercial community of that city, although I'm not claiming that that sense of fair play is in any way prevalent. I think that it's founded on that. The streets were built by the British, the railways, okay, anything that is there, the education system, the medical system, it not only has its roots in, but it descends directly from what Great Britain brought it, okay? And this isn't me justifying the British Empire or colonialization. When you go to Myanmar, people will say to you, oh, you're from Britain? Well, we wish you guys would come back rather than the military administration that we've had all of this time. And Myanmar, the grandparental generation at the moment in Myanmar, are able to remember the British rule, and they're able to remember how Myanmar was the center of education for Southeast Asia at that time. And you know, you still see the trace of that now with the leader Aung San Suu Kyi, who is an Oxford University graduate from the UK. And there's so many positive things about that. You had no idea that those positive things were going to surface when you went to that country. You know, and I mean, you see it's very similar things in India. And now the dialogue or the narrative in the UK is the evil imposition of the British Empire impoverishing the rich India. My God, when you go there, the picture is really the contrary of that. So I feel that Britain now has a responsibility towards Myanmar to free its people, because Britain was really asked in a very forceful way to leave Myanmar during the Second World War, as I think that Myanmar had really had enough of being run by the ones and the others from different countries, including the Japanese and the Indians and the British, and being butchered by them. Although Myanmar, we know, has done its fair share of butchering and still continues to do right now in the sad global reality of the increasing banalization of violence these days. But Britain wants you to focus inwardly into Britain now and to be afraid of leaving your house. It's not interested in patching up the wrong that it did by dumping Myanmar, even though Myanmar asked it to dump it. But don't you feel any responsibility towards the people of Myanmar who are trembling in their houses right now, who are being shot down because they've gone out into the street, and all of those people who dream of a free life where they can walk in the streets they can have commercial exchange, they can have international exchange and international communications and learning and collaboration. Really, the atmosphere in Myanmar during its years of development since really the beginning of the economic reopening in 2004, and in the years that I was there subsequently, which were from 2014 to 2019, Myanmar had a real magic about it, a real hope for the future, a real creativity, a real spark of intuition, and it really, it's just very difficult to watch the few images that make it out. Many images make it out of Myanmar independently of media, and I think those are some of the most telling images at the moment. Be careful what you see. If somebody's captured picture Y with text X, it doesn't mean that what you're seeing is what's happening, but use your discretion and you can easily see what's happening on the ground. What's happening on the ground is a rejection of democracy via a campaign of terror, via the administration. And you cannot expect the Western world, which is itself locking down on democracy as fast as it can, to do anything about Myanmar, because the only interest of the Western world in Myanmar is how it can use Myanmar in the Western-Chinese standoff at the moment, and also in the management of Islam globally and the business of the Rohingya, so-called Rohingya, rejected by the entire Muslim world, but it's the Buddhists in Myanmar who are blamed by the Western world for that rejection in their country of Myanmar. Thank you very much indeed for listening to me. Let's just have a little thought about what democracy is, if we can. Many thanks.